It is 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Tension after the turmoil. We report from the Syrian city of Suwaida as a fragile ceasefire takes hold and Arab fighters retreat.
Both sides we are saving.
The Bedouins on the other side.
And on the fighting, we are fighting also. We are hellfire fighting. They are killing the children. They are taking the people.
Also tonight, more violence in Gaza as 85 people are killed while trying to get aid as Israel issues widespread evacuation orders. The Lionesses rally behind star defender Jess Carter, who says she's been the victim of racist abuse online during the Euros.
People need to be held accountable for their actions, whether it's in person or online. The abuse is not okay, racism is not okay.
The government plan to halve water pollution as part of a major shake-up of the industry. Plus, Scotty Scheffler triumphs at the Open after dominating the week at Royal Portrush. And we'll take our first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. For 2 days, Sky News has reported from the Syrian city of Suwaida, the site of deadly clashes which have threatened to plunge the country into a renewed crisis that could further destabilise the region. Today, the Syrian government began tentative steps to gain control of the situation, but our team has witnessed the ongoing tensions and the fears of civilians inside and outside the city. Well, human rights groups say more than 1,000 people have died in Suwaida, a southern province, after a week of deadly violence. Today, the mass exodus of armed Bedouin clans to neighbouring areas has left a fragile ceasefire in place. From Suwaida, our special correspondent, Alex Crawford, has our top story.
It's a very fragile ceasefire. But ranks of Syrian security forces are now around the besieged city of Suwaida. They're trying to prevent thousands of Arab tribal fighters from entering. On presidential orders, the Arab fighters have retreated from the mainly Druze city after nearly a week of violent clashes and are now on the outskirts. But they are watching and waiting to see what unfolds. Among the fighters are engineers and doctors.
The humanity is number one for us.
We're saving both sides.
Yeah, both sides we are saving.
The Bedouins on the other side.
And on the fighting, we are fighting also. We are hellfire fighting. They are killing the children. They are taking the people out of their homes.
Crucially, Arab tribal leaders have agreed to the ceasefire and say they're supporting the government forces and a unified Syria. We are not against the Druze people, the leader told the fighters. We're not here to kill the Druze. But whilst talking to us, he accused one Druze militia led by cleric Hikmat al-Hajri of terrible crimes against the Arab Bedouins.
These are crimes. How do countries help you and you cut off the heads of our children and expose the nakedness of our women? We will not be silent until you are tried and held accountable, al-Hajiri.
Inside Suwaida, there is terrible devastation in the predominantly Druze city. The Arab fighters may have left the city centre, but about 30,000 mainly Druze civilians remain trapped. They're deeply distrustful of the new government and its security forces, and Druze militia have taken up sniper positions for fear of further attacks. So far, there's been little aid accepted by Suwaida's Druze leaders, including the White Helmets emergency response teams, because of their government connections. But Druze civilians trapped inside who spoke to us through a female action group painted a desperate picture.
There's nowhere to escape to. They have to create safe corridors. There's no electricity, no water, nothing. We need safe corridors. Kids need nappies. They need food and milk.
Nearly 130,000 people have fled their homes, the UN estimates. We travelled to one near-deserted village just outside Suwaida, where Bedouin and Druze minorities lived side by side before the clashes. Little more than a handful of people now remain. This Druze family say 10 of their relatives in Suwaida were killed in the violence, and they want justice.
We are the sons of one country. People who break the law, who are violent, should be punished by the government. That's what we want.
The area's key government official tries to reassure them.
The soil of this country is for everyone. It won't be divided.
But right now, few are reassured, and there are fears it won't take much to shatter this shaky ceasefire and plunge the south back into violent chaos. Alex Crawford, Sky News, in Sweda province.
Now, the fall of Bashar al-Assad at the end of last year offered the hope for a brighter future for a country that has been decimated by civil war. Our correspondent, Thomas Moore, has been taking a closer look at the road to this latest crisis and at the factions involved.
Syria is deeply divided as it emerges from nearly 14 years of civil war. The deadly sectarian clashes in Syria in the south of the country highlight its fragile stability and threaten to derail attempts to rebuild the fractured nation. In December, former ruler Bashar al-Assad was toppled from a lightning-quick rebel offensive led by Islamist groups. A former jihadist, Ahmed al-Sharaa, took over as president, vowing to protect minorities. But reconciling Syria's deep-rooted divisions has proved no easy task.
There are still simmering tensions after the long civil war. In March, clashes in coastal provinces killed hundreds of people from the Alawite minority to which Assad belonged. Then, in April, violence broke out in Suwaida in the south of the country between Druze militia groups and Syria's new security forces, with dozens killed. The current fighting has again been centred on Suwaida, this time between Druze fighters and Bedouin tribes, with several hundred killed. So who are the two groups? There are almost 700,000 Druze people in Syria, with more in Lebanon, Israel and the occupied Golan Heights. Their faith is an offshoot of Shia Islam. Some Druze groups are opposed to government security forces in the region, and Israel launched airstrikes in their support. The Bedouin are another minority in Syria, also numbering around 700,000. They are Sunni Muslims and are traditionally nomadic tribes that have inhabited deserts around the region for centuries. They are seen as loyal to the new Syrian government.
It's very difficult when you have so many ethnic groups and militia for anybody to create a state of nationhood, especially if one of those groups has been installed in power in preference to other groups. This new government doesn't have the trust of any of the minorities because of its history as a terrorist organization, and it's very likely to struggle to achieve peace in the region.
There is now an uneasy ceasefire brokered by the United States, with government and Bedouin forces withdrawing from Suwaida and Israel holding off from further attacks. The UK and US are concerned the clashes could destabilise the nation. President Trump met the new leader in May, lifting sanctions, and the UK Foreign Secretary was recently in Damascus. The countries see the al-Shara government as the best chance of preventing a security vacuum. The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio tweeted, "If authorities in Damascus want to preserve any chance of achieving a unified, inclusive and peaceful Syria free of ISIS and Iranian control, they must help end this calamity by using their security forces to prevent ISIS and any other violent jihadists from entering the area and carrying out massacres." A stable peace still looks a long way off for a nation rebuilding from a vicious civil war. Thomas Moore, Sky News.
Well, to Gaza now, where at least 85 Palestinians have been killed while waiting for aid. That's according to the Hamas-run health ministry. The deadliest attack was at the Zikim crossing in northern Gaza, where 79 people were killed. Witnesses have described being surrounded by tanks and fired upon by soldiers and drones. The UN World Food Programme said 25 trucks with aid entered Gaza, where they encountered massive crowds which then came under fire.
I went to Zikim for the first time to get a small amount of bread, flour. We were surprised when tanks started firing and soldiers and quadcopters opened fire, besieging us inside. I was injured in my ear and hand. Young men were killed right in front of me. There were so many injuries.
We were waiting for flour because of hunger. We wanted to eat and drink, and suddenly the tanks came out at us and surrounded us and started shooting. We couldn't get the flour, and we remained surrounded for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Some of us were able to escape, some were killed, and some were injured. As you can see, this is our situation.
Well, aid organisations operating inside Gaza have told Sky News the humanitarian situation there is deteriorating rapidly.
This is another mass casualty incident that is being reported in the vicinity of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation food distributions. The situation here is absolutely dire. And my team said to me today, the situation in Gaza has never been this bad. They are desperately hungry. Children are crying all the time for food. And my team, who are employed, they have money in their bank accounts, they're unable to find food in Gaza to buy. So the situation is absolutely terrible, and people are making impossible choices to risk their lives to try and find food.
Well, these latest deaths of people in search of aid follow Israel issuing evacuation orders for parts of central Gaza. It's one of the few areas of the territory where it has rarely operated with ground troops and where many aid organisations are based. Well, the government has vowed to make the UK's rivers the cleanest on record by halving sewage pollution by the end of the decade. The Environment Secretary has told Sky News that the water sector is absolutely broken and promised bold reform is on its way. Well, this all comes ahead of a major government shake-up of the water industry expected tomorrow. Our People and Politics correspondent Nick Martin has more.
Down on the River Thames, beneath the waterline, something pretty grim is going on.
No one would really know it's happening. The tide's too high. But for more than an hour now, a pipe has been spewing sewage straight into the River Thames. There's nothing unusual about this. It can happen hundreds of times a day across Britain.
Last year, a staggering 3.5 million hours of discharges flowed through creaking pipes. The government's big promise to halve water pollution by water companies by 2030. The Environment Secretary says customers deserve cleaner water and better value for money.
Our water sector is absolutely broken. In the general election just a year ago, people were furious that we were seeing record levels of sewage pollution in our rivers and our lakes and our seas, and they voted for change. Well, that change is now coming. We need to reform this sector from top to bottom so that the failure of the past can never happen again.
A report by the Independent Water Commission presented to MPs on Monday is expected to recommend the scrapping of Ofwat, the water regulator, and urge ministers to introduce a nationwide scheme to help low-income families with water bills. In Wakefield in West Yorkshire, the rivers and canals are regularly polluted by sewage. People here seemed keen to foot the bill for cleaner water.
I'd be more than happy to pay more. It's just that plan of action. I'm all for nationalisation.
Well, I live on a boat and I've seen firsthand all the rubbish that gets swilled into the canal from the fields. It's utterly disgusting.
It's been going on for years, hasn't it, all this? There's been no infrastructure put into to cover all the increase in population.
The size of the task is huge. It's estimated that if work to replace the ageing water mains continues at the current pace, it would take 700 years to fix the entire network.
I do not think you're going to see a government decide to invest in our antiquated Victorian-era sewage systems if they've also got a choice of whether they build new hospitals, new schools. All these difficult choices have to be made.
Reform UK's leader Nigel Farage had a more radical view.
Well, I think we have to let the companies go bust and the shareholders and bondholders lose all their money.
But this is far from Labour's approach.
Going for the water companies is the latest in a series of bold moves by the government as they try to step in to fix some of Britain's failing public services. We've seen it with the idea of nationalising the railway, and we've also seen it with the scrapping of NHS England. But it's risky. If the government fail to implement improvements, they don't just inherit a problem, they potentially own them too.
The government is now making big promises, pulling off the biggest reforms to the water industry since the late 1980s. It is fraught with danger and political risk.
Well, Nick joins us now live from Westminster. And Nick, as you make at the point you make at the end of that package, does the government now have quite a bit of risk in front of them?
Yes, it is a huge task and it is a costly task. And, you know, the sewage that was pumped into this river today is really quite small when you think of how much is pumped into this river in an average year, between 2 and 14 million tonnes into this river. One river, one part of the country, a sign of just how broken Britain's water system is. And, you know, the government's ambitions are rooted in efforts to restore public trust in public services, and that is not going to be easy. Over the last few decades, it's been plagued by pollution scandals, regulatory failure, people's bills rising, and all at the same time, the people who run the water companies affording themselves huge pay rises. This is a problem that the government know will not go away. And tomorrow in Parliament, this independent commission will urge ministers to take action. Now, the big questions to come out of this is how long will it take to fix and how much will it cost? And at some point, the government will have to level with voters and say who will pay and how will they pay. And that is when it will get politically as murky as the water was here today.
Nick, for now, thank you. Now, a man has been charged with violent disorder and criminal damage after clashes with police on Thursday outside a hotel near Essex. This evening, another person was arrested after more than 100 protesters assembled once again outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, which is housing asylum seekers. Some demonstrated through bottles and smoke flares at officers blocking the hotel's entrance, but the majority peacefully protested with signs calling for the deportation of foreign criminals and chants of "Save our kids."
I've got a 16-year-old daughter. I worry about her in my local area where we live, and it's right on your doorstep. You've got people here and we don't know who they are. This has happened. It's absolutely awful and needs to stop.
Well, there was a scuffle on stage last night as a performer held up a Palestinian flag at the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden. The member of the chorus unfurled the flag as cast members were taking their bows following the final performance of the opera Il Trovatore. A spokesperson said the display of the flag was an unauthorised action by the artist. It was not approved by the Royal Ballet and Opera and is a wholly inappropriate act, they say. Now, several people have been hurt after a car crashed into the roof of a property in the German town of Bonte. Police say that 2 people were seriously injured as the vehicle collided with another, was catapulted into the air, striking a boy who was playing on a trampoline at the time before ending up, as you can see, in the roof. Now, the search is continuing for survivors of a boat which capsized during a storm in Vietnam. At least 38 people have been killed and 5 are still missing. Our correspondent, Alice Porter, has this.
Hindered by dark skies and rough seas, rescue workers try to find survivors amongst the wreckage of the Wondersea boat. It was meant to offer a short sightseeing tour of Halong Bay, one of the country's most popular tourist destinations. Instead, as Typhoon Wipa entered the South China Sea, a violent thunderstorm suddenly overturned the vessel.
Very quick. The boat capsized in less than a minute. It was raining for about 15 minutes, then the boat started to shake vigorously. Tables and chairs were jostled around, and seconds later the boat overturned. Water gushed in and I lost all orientation.
Barely conscious, this woman was one of the lucky few to be pulled from the water. 53 people were on board. 34 were killed. A number still missing.
There's still my husband, my children, my friend and their family. I hope they will all be rescued soon. Don't leave anyone on the boat. The air is running thin and hope for surviving is running out.
The Wondersea has been taken to a shipyard for investigations, while Typhoon Wipa is expected to make landfall next week, bringing with it yet more devastation. Alice Porter, Sky News.
Well, earlier we brought you news of more deaths in Gaza, but today saw a mass at the only Catholic church in the enclave which itself was hit by Israeli strikes earlier in the week. Well, despite the danger, worshippers came out, boosted by a message of support from the Pope. Lisa Holland reports.
Sunday Mass and the work and prayer of Gaza's only Catholic church goes on. But led by Pier Battista Pizzabella, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, given rare permission to cross the border from Israel into the Gaza Strip for the service. To the relief of his community, the parish priest of the Holy Family Catholic Church, Father Gabriel Romanelli, was well enough to take part. He was amongst 12 people hurt in the attack, treated in hospital for leg injuries. Foremost in people's thoughts, the church's janitor and 2 elderly women, killed when an Israeli shell landed on the building 3 days ago. Israel said the attack was a mistake and it deeply regretted the incident. At his summer residence in Italy, Pope Leo called for holy sites to be protected. The pontiff had previously spoken with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, pushing for progress in talks. He read out the names of those who lost their lives at the church in Gaza.
Prego per le vittime, Saad Issa Costandis Salam, Fomia Issa Latif Ajad, Najwa Ibrahim Latif Abu Daoud.
And he renewed his appeal for a ceasefire.
I appeal to the international community to observe humanitarian law and respect the obligation to protect civilians, as well as prohibition of collective punishment, the indiscriminate use of force, and the forced displacement of populations.
The Holy Family Church had become famous to Catholics around the world for receiving a nightly call from the late Pope Francis. It offered shelter to hundreds of displaced people in Gaza. In the wake of the attack, Father Romanelli said they had drawn comfort from the closeness of the church and will continue to try to convince the world that no good will come from this conflict. Lisa Holland, Sky News, Jerusalem.
OK, let's get the latest sports news now. Here's Nick.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
How do you manage to keep your spirits up and the spirits of your teammates after challenges you may face?
Self-confidence in yourself and your own ability is such an important aspect to have.
I've had a number of injuries the last 1.5 or 2 years, and they've taken their toll on my head at times.
Sometimes you just need to grab somebody and just give them a hug, tell them that it'll be okay.
Professional footballers helping young people with their mental health. That's the aim of virtual soccer schools, alongside learning platform Amazing People Schools. Online, in person, and with AI technology.
My question is, how do you deal with stress on and off the pitch?
Football is the most powerful sport in the world. And utilising footballers, we just see them as players on the pitch, passing the ball and scoring goals, but they have so much more to offer. So at VSS, we're providing them with a platform to showcase their mental health strategies, their setbacks, how they deal with anxiety, pressure and growth mindset, just not on the pitch, but how they utilise it off the pitch as well.
Former Arsenal defender Thomas Vermaelen was the latest footballer to take part in the charity's first ever in-person session.
Allow yourself to be disappointed.
I enjoy passing on experiences, if it's about mental health, my career, the pressure I've been through, giving my experience to the younger generation is something that I really like. In earlier years, we didn't really speak about it, so it's just we get along and we go through tough times, but you hear now players basically after their career opening up about the struggles they had during. As ex-professionals, if we can give some sort of experience of insight, what to expect, or any advice we can give to the younger generation, I think it's only good. We can prepare them a little bit.
That sentiment was shared by Chelsea midfielder Kiernan Dewsbury Hall.
It is important in this day and age to talk about it because there's a lot of people that go through it. As a youngster, I probably let things affect me a little bit more, and I was a bit more naive to it. But the older you get, the more experience you get, I think you just learn to not let it get you down. If you see negative comments or whatever, just don't let it get you down. Look, just see the positive ones and how you can use that in a good way. As I've gone along in my career, I've learned to deal with that in a better way.
Pressure is in the moment can be very uncomfortable. At the same time, it's also something what gives excitement to the career and the games. But yeah, if you really struggle with the pressure and you see it's affecting your performances, you know, I wish then in those days you could speak about it more, but I think in those days it was more like a sign of weakness sometimes.
It's that perception of weakness around mental health that the charity wants to break down amongst the young.
It's amazing to see the young people come on to our sessions, have that confidence to ask the player a question on real tough subject matters such as social media, resilience, growth mindset, bullying, and how those players have dealt with it within their own world and giving back to the next generation.
Hi there, my name's Keelan Dewberry-Hall. I'm here today to talk about stress, anxiety, mental health.
And VSS is taking it one step further with the introduction of AI and on-demand help as part of the service they provide.
We will essentially make it so that people can go online, ask you a question, and then your answer will play.
Having Keelan taking part in this AI mental health initiative is a game changer, because what we're about to do is we're about to give children the mental health support they deserve by having it on demand. So we have the virtual VSS via Zoom, we have the in-person session, and now we have the AI as well.
As a youngster making my first appearances in a senior environment, I would get very nervous going into matches. I haven't got an exact science on how to deal with stuff like.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Well, thank you for that, Neil. Let's get more on that story we've been bringing you all evening about Jess Carter saying she has been the victim of online racial abuse during the Euros. Well, our sports correspondent Rob Harris is in Zurich and sent us this.
The Football Association from England's Euros base here in Zurich very quickly contacted the police back in Britain, hoping that the perpetrators of this racist abuse are brought to justice. And that speed of action is perhaps a reflection of how grimly familiar this situation is. Over many years now, the Football Association has been dealing with both men's and women's players facing racist abuse online, particularly during major tournaments. And you also got a sense there from Lucy Bronze just how she said, we know any player of colour who's played for England has probably faced racist abuse, and that's a sad fact in this day and age. And I think that's why Bronze wanted to take a stand here today to show the solidarity with Jess Carter and to hope to put pressure on the social media firms. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has just posted online saying there is no place for racism in football or anywhere in society. I stand with Jess, the Lionesses, and any players who suffered racism on and off the pitch. But the focus will very much shift onto what the social media firms are doing, particularly X, owned by Elon Musk, Instagram, which is part of Meta. And I've just been speaking to the chair of English football's anti-racism body, Kick It Out, Sanjay Bandari, who's been telling me just how concerned this situation is for him and how he watches England games with dread, particularly as social media firms just aren't doing enough, he believes.
I watch every England game at every tournament with the fear that after the match there's going to be abuse of a black player using the spurious basis of performance as an excuse to justify unjustifiable racism. All racism is unjustifiable. The fact that someone's had a good or bad a game, in your opinion, does not justify that kind of racist abuse. We know that the social media companies need to do far more. They've actually gone backwards over the last 4 or 5 years, not forwards. It's got worse on social media, not better. And they need to provide us with the tools to help to keep us safe and to remove some of this toxicity from the platforms. They're just not doing enough.
There was no immediate response from X or indeed from Meta when we asked them for comment. As for the Lionesses, they are now trying to focus on their Euro semi-final meeting with Italy in Geneva on Tuesday. They've said that they won't take a knee, the anti-racism solidarity gesture that we've seen in all the matches so far at this tournament. They will stand. They say that it is clear that football needs to find another way to tackle racism. What's very clear here at England's Euros base in Zurich is they feel not enough is being done to tackle racism as they stand in support of Jess Carter dealing with this horrific online abuse.
That's Rob Harris reporting, and that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we're going to take our first look at tomorrow's papers in our press preview. Tonight we're joined by the broadcaster and commentator Duncan Barks and the political journalist Alicia Fitzgerald. Among the stories we'll be discussing this on the front of the Metro, the headline, "Our Water Torture," will go on. We'll be right back.